Welcome to DVD number 4 of Event Hacks. Fill, market, and monetize every time. In this session, Dan Kennedy details the critical topic of lists and list segmentation. There are many ways to slice and dice a list. Dan will reveal not only how to do this, but also covers strategies on customizing the message to make it even more appealing. In addition, Dan identifies some of the key generational distinctions between boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials, giving you insights on how they view events and their reasons to either attend or not attend. Best of all, he explains everything in a clear, easy-to-grasp manner that you can put to use immediately. And now, GKIC is very pleased to bring you Dan Kennedy, describing lists and list segmentation.
So when you think about segmenting your customer list, your prospect list, your market for event marketing, the first thing is, if you possibly can, you should. Different people, by some common ingredient, becoming a group of people, have a different a position with regard to your event. And so these list segments usually look like people who were at the last event, people who have been at previous events but skipped the last event, people who've stubbornly never been to an event, people who are too new to you to have attended an event. So that's like their own position in relationship to the event. You may have business category segments. So I did a lot of marketing work for restaurant marketing systems. Into the same event, we were putting pizza shop owners, gourmet steakhouse owners, catering company owners, mid-range family diner kind of business owners, hamburger joint owners. Well, rightly or wrongly, they all think that they're different from everybody else. That's actually a piece of leverage if you choose to use it. And so that list got segmented by type of business within the same business category. In real estate agents, you have luxury real estate agents. You have husband and wife teams. You have small markets. You have major cities, et cetera, et cetera. So in almost every category, you have exactly the same thing, by the way, in churches. So we have a longtime member, former Titanium member, Nelson Searcy. And so you have small town churches, you have big city churches, mega churches. You have husband and wife pastors. You have affluent neighborhood churches. You have kind of poor community churches. So you have all these different kinds of businesses that are all under the same category of business. And you might slice and dice that way. You might have known income differential. Real estate agent, you might not know the incomes, but you might know how many transactions they've done in a year. And from that, and the average price of a home in their state, you can extrapolate an estimated income. So you might very well know within a list agents who are making $100,000 a year or more, agents who only made between 25 and 50, and agents who barely made enough money to get to the office and hang out with the other agents and drink coffee. Clearly, there are different reasons or different rankings of reasons for these different people to attend or not to attend an event. If we throw one generic message at them, we have a handful of problems. One, no matter what order we put things in, for somebody, we are essentially requiring them to get all the way to page 6 or its equivalent before we are hitting their relevance. And we run the risk of them never getting to page 6. That's problem number one. Problem number two is we reduce impact by broadness and quantity of message. So if I say 67 different things to you, I don't have near the impact if I can say 6 things to you that are profoundly relevant to you. Right? So if you are a traveling salesperson and you're on the road 5 days out of the week and home on the weekends, and I'm going to get you to a relationship retreat. And I know that's what you are. See, I can just start with 72% of all people who are away from home, all husbands who are away from home for 5 days a week and only home on the weekends, discover that their spouse has an affair, and 82% of them are divorced. There are certain specific magic relationship skills these people need to know to deal with the fact that they're on the road. See, I could start the conversation right with where you are. If I have you mixed in with people who are home every night and aren't salespeople and under the stress of selling and on and on and on, I just have to throw that in the mix and hope you focus on it. Hope you notice it and focus on it. So the more we segment and tweak our messages to the market segments, the more effective that we can be. Another different type of segment is who is most valuable for you to have there. So this goes all the way back to re-engineering from our chief purposes. So for some, having the new person, new to them, there is most valuable. They don't own anything. They can buy everything. A big retention trigger will be whether or not they attend an event. So we spent all this money to get them. The best thing we can do to keep them is to have them at an event. And so let's say that's the case. Now that decision not only governs the segmentation, that we take them out of the general population to speak to differently, but we may well spend differently. So if it's worth 3 times as much to have somebody from a suburban area in the center states of the country as it is to have somebody there from the East Coast, then logically we'll want to spend 3 times as much money or 2.5 times as much money to get the person from Kansas there versus the person from Massachusetts. That means we're not just going to geographically select, we're going to use bulk mail with Massachusetts, first class mail with Kansas. Maybe we're going to use FedEx. We're going to send an object, a big treasure chest to the prospect in Kansas. We're going to use a picture of a treasure chest in the stuff we send to the persons in Massachusetts. We're going to have our phone room exhaust themselves on the people in the middle of the country states before we ever let them make a call to anybody in Massachusetts. Or we're going to put the best telemarketers on the people in Kansas and the worst telemarketer on the people in Massachusetts. So that kind of list segmentation of what's best for us, what's most valuable to us, what do we want to have there, causes list segmentation. If married couples where both spouses are at least involved in the business, if if they buy at a much higher rate than do single men or single women who are at the event by themselves, then we want to list segment that, and we want to not only alter the message, but we may want to alter the spend that we invest in order to get the most productive people there. A lot of info marketers don't do this analysis. They, in most cases, have the data. They just haven't organized it in these ways in their database. And they're reluctant at any point to go back and do it retroactively because it's painful and cumbersome and time-consuming. But the precision match of the story of why you, Bob and Helen, should be at this event, and Bob and Helen is the greatest point of leverage of all in event marketing. So every segment we just discussed will have its own highest ranked, most persuasive reasons to attend. They may also have their own highest ranked reasons not to attend or obstacles to attend. And therefore, every segment is best served by its own message, taking those things into account. So if you take somebody who attended your annual event 3 years in a row but skipped last year, there should be, if your events were any good and he's the right customer, there should now be withdrawal symptoms. He should regret the year he missed. For whatever reason, he felt he had to miss it. Depending upon the relationship and the relationship of the other people who attend, he can be guilted about having missed a year. And so that can be factored into the message. He can be talked to about what he missed that he surely doesn't want to miss again. Reasons he may have missed can be addressed, sort of, don't let these things bite you twice. Some average number of income increase achieved by everybody who was at last year's event can be used, and look how much it cost you to stay home. So that's conversation we can only have with him. It doesn't apply to any of the other segments. If he's from France or Belgium, and your event last year was right during horrible messes in France and Belgium, that's probably the reason he missed if he was a repetitive attendee before. You can address it. If his town was underwater, that's probably a reason, but he's not going to have the flood of the century 2 years in a row in the same month. We can reassure him of that fact. So these conversations, their specificity matters a lot. The person who's new, as I said in a different segment, they may feel it's not right yet, too soon, too big a leap. We can reassure them about that. The real experienced customer who's been with us a long time. So my mid-year events, roughly 40% of the room every year is made up of lifers, of people with 10 to 30 years of tenure with me. They've read a lot, heard a lot. They've been to a lot of events. Many of them arguably could teach the event. I'm now asking them to attend. Some are in titanium, so they're with me for 7 days a year already. And so you can sort of wear out your welcome. So they have to be told, they have to be convinced that this is different. There is new here. It is not a rehash of old. There's new work being done. And they have to be reminded of the fact that they themselves say, every time they come, they're worried about this, that there won't be anything new, and yet they're amazed that there is, and they go home and get result A, B, C, D, and E. Well, that conversation only needs to be had with them. There's no reason to have it with anybody else. It's not appropriate for anybody else, but it's pretty vital with them. So every list segment, however you create it, what you have now created in event marketing terms is a different audience. And that audience will have things it needs reassured of that other audiences do not need reassured of. It will have powerful reasons to be there that other audiences, those reasons would not apply. It may have obstacles and reasons not to be there that other audiences wouldn't have. So you can't let yourself get confused just because you are selling an event. It does not mean you are selling an event to an audience. That's not what's happening. We're selling an event differently to a variety of different audiences. And in reality, what that means is we're selling a different event to every different audience because it needs to be for them, not for everybody. When you're in the position of selling an event to a cold audience, you have no relationship with them. They've made no prior purchases from you. They may not even know who you are or that you exist. The first thing you should know candidly is it's extremely difficult. The value has to warrant the difficulty and the investment that it is going to take. It is going to cost a lot more money in 9 out of 10 cases to put a stranger in a seat than it is to put someone you already have authority with, credibility with, trust with, friendship with, relationship with, ongoing communication with. It's going to cost a multiple of what it would cost you to put that existing relationship person in a seat. So cold market seminar marketing is it's an expensive exercise. It's a speculative exercise. You can fail. And it's a difficult exercise. So the reasons to do it have to be pretty compelling. There will almost always be more steps. In many cases, my method is to lead generate without revealing that there is an event involved. So I will have a client, this requires a much longer sales cycle too. I will have a client lead generate as they might to sell something else. So there's going to be an information first offer, there's going to be a free book, there's going to be a free report, there's going to be a free webcast, there's going to be a free audio CD, there's going to be a free something. And there will be a whole campaign to drive that. Only with that, when that is fulfilled, will the actual event marketing begin. And so there's really now 2 campaigns instead of 1 occurring. If you have the opportunity to co-opt somebody else's customer base, that obviously helps. So if you have a joint venture partner, you have a host, you have speakers who have lists, you have sponsors who have lists, exhibitors who have lists. Any or all of that can be used to cobble together less cold outreach. So you have an endorser who they know. Ideally, you have an endorser they not only know, but because they buy Band-Aids from them, but they have an endorser they know because they have a relationship with them, they get a newsletter from them, whatever. None of that will ever be as effective as, of course, your own tribe, but it's generally better than just starting by cold advertising in, for example, trade journals, in online media, on Facebook, to draw people with an interest in X and then move them through a process to an event registration. So when you can, quote, quote, partner, you want to. And that may be 1 partner, or that may be 10, or that may be 50. But for a number of years, Ted Thomas, who's been in our world a long time, Ted ran an annual information marketing conference. He had no list really that was relevant to that, but he would have 50 speakers on that program and use every one of the 50 speakers lists in order to sell the program to. At one point, Tony Robbins ran a joint venture campaign for an event with people like Jay Abraham, Nightingale Conant, 20 or so, each had an appropriate list and had some relationship with them. So you can kind of cobble it together that way. But even with that, you're starting out pretty cold. And you have to understand that the difficulty is much higher. Usually the sales cycle will be longer. The need to establish who you are, what you bring to the table. You're really starting from zero. There is no, gee, I want to come sit at the feet of the master. You're starting with, let me explain to you why I'm a master. And so that job gets a lot tougher. Now, when you're doing pure sales events, everything from the local free preview done by the financial advisor, the doctor, the road show, the Get Rich in Real Estate free seminar. If you're doing come from all across the country to a discovery day, but it's disclosed in all these cases, you're coming to the event to find out about something you might want to do, you might want to buy. You know you're coming into a sales environment. Now, the lack of relationship is not as harmful. Now, it's still pretty expensive and difficult to fill those seats, but because the purpose is disclosed, it's really all about now the purpose, not about the person or the relationship or a mix of content. So if it's a free seminar about manipulation under anesthesia for people with severe and chronic back pain, and this is your last option before surgery, and there's a big full-page newspaper ad, and there's a bunch of Facebook advertising, and there's radio commercials, and it's coming to your town once this year, prior relationship really isn't even necessary, right? If that match is right and you have severe back problems and you're nearly at the point of deciding to let them cut, you will go to this. I have a client that does diabetes seminars all across the country, has no prior relationship with anybody who's in the room, has no hosts putting people in the room, newspaper, direct mail, radio, fills the room. He doesn't need any of that. But aside from there, everywhere else, not having pre-existing relationship to leverage is a big issue, and overcoming it requires big effort. Age brackets: millennial, Gen X, boomer, senior. This is all becoming significant. And there's a lot of research. The trade show industry, for example, is beside itself with Gen Xers and now worse with millennials. Their whole industry is about people in aisles for exhibitors. And the Gen Xers don't want to be in the aisles, and the millennials definitely don't want to be in the aisles. And they are really trying to figure this out. If you read Meetings and Conventions magazine, the trade journal for conference planners, professional meeting planners, all of their research and experience is leading to everything millennials want is actually counterproductive to, in most cases, why you put on an event. They don't like long class periods. They like long breaks. They don't want to walk exhibit halls. They don't like being sold to. They strenuously object to it. On and on and on. So it's an issue, and it's a significant issue. Those who live stream are finding it getting in their way of doing an event for the reasons that you would do an event. So the boomer senior attendee is fairly reliable. Their habits are pretty ingrained. They've been coming to events for decades. They've been getting education in a classroom, in a seminar room. They place a value on it. And so their responsiveness to what we typically do with events and event marketing is pretty reliable. It's being chipped away at or harmed only a little and at a very slow pace. So in some respects, that mirrors television. So Blue Bloods, which is a very successful show on Friday nights, it stars Tom Selleck. It's a family drama, and everybody in the family is, one way or another, a cop. So the family business is New York cops. It actually is, if you have a historical frame of reference, the show is Bonanza. Selleck admits to cribbing from Bonanza for the show. I happen to think they're just using the scripts. So it's just Bonanza transplanted to New York City is what it is, and it's cops instead of ranchers. But anyway, it's a fairly slow-paced, it's not as slow as like, say, Murder, She Wrote, if you remember that, but it's a fairly slow-paced, not a lot of violence, cop show, family drama. It is aimed at leading-edge boomers and seniors. And it's the highest-rated show of the night. 70+% of its viewers watch it in its time slot on Friday night. They watch this week's episode this week on Friday night. For them, it is actually what used to be quite common, called destination TV. So boomers and seniors grew up living by destination TV. You watched Dallas. You arranged your evening to be home in time to watch Dallas. NFL football is so valuable as a TV commodity because it's one of the last lifetime destination TV products left. Most people like to watch a game during the game. If you drop down from boomers and seniors and you go into Gen Xers, they're watching less, well, they watch less TV, period, but setting that aside. Of the TV they watch less than 50% of it as it is occurring. So if they watch Bill Maher on HBO, or they watch shows that are really for them, they watch what used to be the Jon Stewart show on Comedy Central. They watch it on the treadmill tomorrow. They watch it, they binge watch 4 nights of it on Saturday. The millennials watch less TV than even the Gen Xers. And of what they do watch, they watch only 10% of it as it is occurring. And most of that is sports. The rest of it, they watch at all different times. So now if you think about events, it tells you the younger they are, the less they want to be at them, period. And in large part, the main reason they don't want to be there is because they can't control the time, the order, the access. There's an agenda. You have to be in the room at 9:15. Well, their whole life is not about that. Their whole life is about picking their own agenda. So they're very resistant. However, if you're doing an event for most of the reasons why you do an event, you kind of got to start at 9:15, and if you're going to sell something, you kind of got to start that by 10, and you got to finish by 10:30, and you got to feed everybody lunch at the same time. You can't let everybody eat lunch whenever the hell they want to, all day long. So that's a problem. And really, for our business, it's having two impacts. The overwhelming majority of events are held for boomers and seniors. They are the audience that will not only buy them, but will accept them in the way that it is most productive and profitable to deliver them. The next most marketed to is Gen X, and the last and least marketed to for events is the millennials. It remains to be seen if, as each group moves by 10 years and 15 years, if their behavior will catch up, if you will. And the group of 50-year-olds that we have 20 years from now or 10 years from now will behave in any way, shape, or form like the group of 50-year-olds that we have now. Who knows? But what I know now is that the money with events is largely being made with the boomer and senior audience. I was talking about in another segment this music festival thing, and this same company puts on the Coachella Music Festival, which is a big deal, but it's skewed young. And the average ticket is $300. The average ticket at this new one they're doing for the first time this year, it's called Desert Trip, play on words, aimed at boomers and seniors with old entertainers. Their average ticket is $1,600. $300, $1,600, right? You got to have 5 times as many people there to get to the same ticket value. Then if you looked at all the upsells, $1,600 a day tents, $16,000 a day tents, no. The ones at the Coachella Festival, 18 of them are coming in a Volkswagen van. You know, they're not renting 16,000. I mean, it's the, you know. So the economic realities of this can't be ignored. The younger the audience, the more, if you are going to sell them events and you are going to sell to them at events, the more these events need to be experiential, and the more these events, you need to have a bigger market to pull from to get to the number who will accept them, buy them, and participate in them. And I don't think that problem's going to get easier. I think that problem's going to get harder. But if your audience is young, if they're techies, if they're get-rich-on-internet folks, if they're, for whatever reason, if they're young, you have a real challenge on your hands, because you have this dichotomy between what event will they buy and what event do we need to do in order for it to be profitable and productive. Gender has not historically been much of an issue. Arguably, if it is an event aimed just at women, first of all, they are much harder to fill and make profitable than events aimed at men or at mixed gender. It is very, I'll get mail. Fortunately, I don't use email, so if you want to bitch about this, you're going to have to, you know, go to some trouble. And I'm going to paint with a very broad brush. But by and large, when women come to women events, they want a lot of fluff. And so flowers and vases and kumbaya and holding hands and talking about feelings and how the room is decorated and all now matters a lot. They also tend to be harder to get money from, and the money comes in smaller chunks. Like it or not, more women have to have money conversations with their male spouses before they spend than men have to have conversations with their female spouses before they spend. Also, the breaking point of the money is lower for the woman. the married woman than it is for the married guy. We know this in the skincare business, for example, versus the sporting goods business. In the skincare business, in continuity, $39 is about the breaking point. $39 on a credit card statement that husband sees will go unquestioned. Anybody who's been married for a long time knows you got to pick your battles. So apparently there's at $39, it isn't worth the conversation. The number for golf-related stuff in continuity is like $99. That's a pretty big spread. Last, women are more likely overall to buy other stuff than invest in business stuff. For many years at the National Speakers Association convention, all of the exhibitors but one were business stuff, software, resources, we'll teach you how to be famous, etc. One vendor every year had purses, and she cleaned up. That booth was jammed, the software booth was empty. That hasn't changed. I see it currently. So for all those reasons, the event aimed at just women does have certain special requirements in how it's positioned, how it's packaged, and how it is delivered. And most of them, frankly, are negatives. I'll also say that we're going to do programs just for women entrepreneurs is a very big graveyard. A lot of very smart people have gone broke there. A lot of women-aimed business magazines have gone broke there and themselves have gone broke. In part, in business, this is not a criticism of the gender. It's a recognition of the fact that a lot of women are in business for non-business reasons. It's a hobby as a business. It's a social exercise that 5 friends own the flower shop together. And the ambition is merely that all the bills get paid and we get to have a restaurant or we get to have a flower shop. They naturally are going to spend less. And they naturally are going to be, if you will, fussier about the experience they have at an event than a bunch of people who are trying to turn one flower shop into 15 flower shops, into 30 flower shops. By the way, this is not just me. So almost every info marketer, right now in Titanium, I have 5, I think, women who are all marketing into niches. Almost any one of them will tell you that the male or husband and wife couple is substantially more valuable than is the female owner of the same business. Mixed gender events, there's never really been, and I don't think there is today, much sensitivity to. So if you go back 30 years in the convention business, spouse programs were normal. The insurance convention, husband and wife came and they had to have a whole special program for the women, and it was mostly foo-foo stuff. They took them shopping, they took them to the spa, etc. That's all dead and buried. It doesn't exist anymore. Seniors don't even, they've abandoned that. But mixed gender, where it's a meeting for dentists, it's a meeting for optometrists, it's a meeting for real estate agents. A real estate agent meeting, for example, there will be more women primaries. So I think there's 3 times as many women real estate agents as there are men. But there's a lot of husband and wife couples, or the spouse kind of tags along. The others, it's usually more male primaries than females. But in many cases, like if you take the average dental practice, the guy you may have on your mailing list as your subscriber, member, or customer is Dr. John Brown, DDS. In truth, Ruth Brown's running the whole office. He's in the back drilling teeth. She's really the business person. And they're going to be in a room together. There's very little gender nuance needed here. In fact, when you attempt it, it is often unwelcome. So when you do breakout sessions, purely for the women at a mixed gender event, what you tend to do is just aggravate them. It's almost like Thanksgiving dinner for a big family and you got to sit at the little people's table. Nobody wants to be at the little people's table. Further, most women entrepreneurs, certainly most successful women entrepreneurs, I just heard this quote actually from Kellyanne Conway, who was Trump's last campaign manager in the 2016 campaign. She said, no one should think that I am in any way soft because I am a woman. During the day, I'm a man. I didn't say it, she said it. But I have often referred in our world, in GKIC, to our women primaries, the women who are members as the primary member for their business, or they are the business person in the husband or wife couple. I call them women with balls. And much like Kellyanne Conway's quote, they think more male than they do female about business. So they want to be in the same room. They want to be dealing with the same issues, and they want to hear the same speakers. They don't really welcome the discrimination or the idea that they have to be sort of civil rights helped in order to compete and perform and be a part of the thing. It's not like when George Foreman speaks, the women don't want to be in the room. The women business people want to be in the room. Now, I will say we have been, at GKIC, dating back to Glaser Kennedy, we have been cognizant, sensitive of some balance, meaning trying not to do a major event of any kind with all male speakers. Too many of our members are women entrepreneurs or women drivers of the business. And so we go out of our way to achieve some balance with our celebrity speakers, with our internal successful member speakers and panelists, and so forth. The vendor balance sort of takes care of itself because we have a lot of successful women entrepreneurs who have companies that also support and vend to our members. We've never really sort of quota systemed it, but we've been sensitive to it. But neither I or my clients in various business niches really go out of their way to alter an event or a portion of an event to be female gender friendly, or for that matter, to be only male gender friendly. I can't recall really having this conversation as a strategic planning issue with anybody I work with on events.
By now, you realize the incredible value of segmenting your list and crafting customized marketing messages to each and every segment. Next session on DVD number 5, Dan will walk you through the key elements every marketing campaign must include when promoting an event. You'll discover how to craft a 4-step campaign that lasts over several months. A model you'll absolutely want to have in pocket when marketing your next event. In addition, he'll also cover the 4 biggest marketing mistakes you absolutely must avoid. Critical information to ensure you have the most effective campaign possible. There's a lot to cover, and you'll be glad you invested the effort in going through it. Thank you again for listening to this GKIC program.